We're not. I think, Peter, we've been relatively good at certain stages through the first two matches. But then we've been we're quite poor in the last quarter and bits and pieces of the Port game. We got off to a slow start last week, which is a bit annoying because we generally start pretty well. And then we've kicked ourselves out of it in many respects. So, but there's a lot of good stuff. And you've got to look at, when you enter into any games of football or any game of sport, you've got to take with you the positives. And we've got some very good positives out of those games. So we go into this game after our meeting, comfortable that our side is right. And we will give a good account of ourselves. Oh, I can't remember this last year. It's not something we don't dig that up. Well, look, it's easy to give it the flick pass, so to speak, but the facts are that when the game starts to when the game finishes, we as coaches will do a certain amount, but from there on in, reality-wise, it's got to be controlled by the player group. And when those lapses appear, and it's not even necessarily a lapse. So sometimes we confuse a lapse with a surge by the opposition that is controlled, it's momentum, it's very hard to stop. It's the ability for us to eat into that momentum and just halt it enough to perhaps regenerate the game that we want or to negate the game that they want. So, yes, we can do something as coaches, but it's a collective. We will try to reorganise the side. We expect our leaders to take control and take charge of certain parts of the game, if you like. So I just think that, by and large, you see the better sides that hold up, stop and then go forward are a very good experienced side, one that's played generally multiple times in the finals, at the top end of the finals, and have players that are in the vintage of say, well, we'll talk about Hawthorn, we'll talk about Fremantle, we'll talk about Geelong and these sort of sides that have been around for a long time in the top echelon, that they've always got their fallback, and their fallback is generally the money men that will stand up and kick the clutch goal or halt the proceedings. So what we're looking for is consistency and getting games in a few of our blokes. And that's it. We're getting games into our leaders. You know, Mark's into his second year as a leader. The previous captain, Juddy's not out there. I'm very confident the way we're going, though, that those things in place are going forward, not backwards. Well, we've run, I reckon the first part of the game against Port was very strong and hard, and rebounding against Richmond was good up until the last 2 minutes. Well, what have I made them? They're number one possession-getting side, which doesn't surprise given the way Geelong have been, and I think that's a testimony to the coaching style, or testament rather to the coaching style. Just going through their figures in the first couple of weeks, it's amazing the amount of football they get. You know, even blokes like, say, Fletcher. He's averaging around about 20 possessions. And I say him because he's deep on the full back line. And people on the full forward line are averaging around about the same. So when the whole side gets that, it's very difficult to pinpoint a source and go, okay, we can stop him, therefore no one else gets it. They all get the football. And they all get the football because that's one of Mark's precursors, I think, when you look at the way Geelong played, is that they have to get it and use it and keep and deny the opposition. So they've done very well. Not because we want to.
Of course. How do you see that playing?
Well, that's just the way it is. Wait until tomorrow afternoon. Night, perhaps. His form hasn't been good enough.
Nothing to do with the 3 o'clock?
No. He knows what he has to do to get back. He's just got to play the same style and the ball-getting power he had last year. Well, he's not Robinson Crusoe. Peter, every player has spoken to about their game. Every player has spoken about the positives and the areas where they've got to improve. Every player. So Bryce is no different than anyone else. Well, there are certain players that seem to get a lot more focus than others, and he just happens to be one of them. But you've got to deal with that. He has to deal with that. Not we have to deal with that. He has to deal with that. That just comes with being a very good footballer. An early round pick and a player that's probably out of, in this case, a restricted free agent. There's always going to be a load up of media speculation about the way he plays and what's happening. So, but they're the things that come with football's been able to cope with outside things. That if you can block those out, you go forward and play football. And that's what we try to teach our players. The media, the public, the expectations, they don't get your kicks. They don't deny your kicks. There's only two sources, yourself and your opponent. Well, we just have to, he's one man.
You had plans for him to...
Well, of course we did. We always have plans for a bloke like that.
Yeah,
He's out of the side. If you haven't read me before, players who are not in the side do not influence the game's result. So therefore, you go to another source, and that's what strengthens your club.
Yeah. So which source is that?
Go to another forward.